The clays are then dispersed into a clay settling area.
What you're flying over here, Charlie, of course, is a clay settling area. You can see these from space, by the way. There's so many of these. Remember, these ponds make up 40% of the mine sites. And what you're seeing here is those little docks that come out into the water, that's where they bleed the water off. You see the water going through the dike there and coming out in the ditch? What they're doing is they're decanting the clay. The clay is settling out and they're taking the clean water off to the side. And they're trying to dry up this clay. And then after about 20 years, the clay pond will be full and they'll create another clay pond. But keep in mind, that clay pond goes 40 feet deep below the earth and 40 feet high at least.
The phosphate mine process has a significant and irreversible impact on the aquifer system and on the environment. One is because of the volumetric displacement of water. They're mining millions and millions of tons of rock, and the rock that they're removing is actually part of the structure of the aquifer system. So it's kind of like deboning a chicken and then expecting the chicken to walk around or fly.
The phosphate industry employs 6,000 people with payroll and benefits of $500 million. Phosphate mining brings in $86 million in state and property taxes. But the effects of mining come at a higher price, and the economics don't balance.
The record is clear that whenever mining displaces farming, the county goes downhill. You can't farm next to a mine. You can't have tourism near a mine. It's too overbearing. And so there's really nothing else to do in the county that gives itself over to mining for phosphates. What is given up by going to phosphate mining is the jobs of normal working people in ranching, in orange groves, and in vegetables. Instead, you get 180 jobs at the most. They promise 180 jobs for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, there are no jobs unless the land is restored, and then at best there'll be a few jobs in ranching and of cattle.
The phosphate companies provide some really good paying jobs for a couple of hundred people, and the land provided a living for thousands.
And think about where those mountains of dirt had to come from to hold all those slime pits. And then think about those giant holes in the ground and how the groundwater has to rush into those giant holes in the ground and fill up those holes where it used to be soil. And that's what happens to the aquifer. It has to rush into those giant holes in the ground and fill them up. And that means there's not enough water to be close to the surface anymore for all those tree roots that rely on that water. And that's why the trees are dying. The only reason that the public hasn't been up in arms earlier about those impacts is that they have not been aware of the magnitude of those impacts.
At the reclaimed Tenorock mine, now a recreation area, a draft EPA study cautioned park employees not to drink the well water due to groundwater pollution. Radiation levels at the site are 25 times higher than EPA safety standards.
Now you see, we're getting into the area where the fertilizer factories are. And what you see out here are these giant white mountains of phosphogypsum. Phosphogypsum is so radioactive, nobody's figured out what to do with it.
Oh, why are we going over it?
So we can flow tonight.
Hold your breath, Charlie.
Yeah, I've held my breath, don't worry.
But it is really radioactive, huh?
Oh, yeah.
The people that live in the area will be exposed to all kinds of radiation. It's not a healthy industry for Florida.
Gypsum is they don't even know what to do with it. It's a real bad waste product that comes out of this thing. And if that sand pile wasn't there, you could see some of the big piles over around Fort Meade and Barte. You can see them for miles and miles and miles if you go down by the river bridge down here, you can look over there and you can see these big bald-headed piles from miles. I see now that they're trying to put a little dirt on the outsides of them and trying to grow some grass on there to try to disguise them, to cover up where you won't know what you're looking at. But this is something that's not going to go away. When Mosaic goes away, these big giant piles all over the southwest Florida of gypsum are going to be there.
I would not live on a house on remediated land. I would not live anywhere near phosphate mining operation, even after it's finished.
Lou Carter, soil expert from Polson Engineering in Sebring, Florida, describes the effect of strip mining this way. Strip mining followed by failed reclamation practices change the soil fundamentally and forever. Soils that have taken hundreds or thousands of years to form are displaced, with the oldest on top and the newest at the bottom. This is something that will not sustain agriculture and will never come close to the diverse, abundant natural systems that we presently have. In Hardee County, up to 60 feet of soil and landscape must be dug away to reach the clay and sand matrix that contains the phosphate, leaving behind miles of desolate land and our children's future.
This is what we get left with when the mining industry leaves. We get left with 40% of the land as clay settling areas that nobody's figured out what to do with yet. And we get left with thousands and thousands of acres of very toxic phosphogypsum stacks. Most of the stuff gets exported. That's why I tell people they get the gold, we get the shaft.
The good that they do is limited mostly to themselves. For them, it's just a cash-producing enterprise. They don't care about my feelings or my concerns or my children's or my grandchildren. All they care about is the amount of cash that they can produce for their company at this time. It's for us here that are not involved or own a phosphate company, it's a catastrophe.
As in Bone Valley, phosphate mining in Hardee County will leave a trail of waste and environmental destruction stretching far into the future. Kevin Irwin is a certified senior ecologist from Fort Myers. He reviewed land reclamation plans for the proposed mine and concluded, "It was my responsibility to review IMC's reclamation plan and budget for the proposed 20,000-acre Ona mine in Hardee County. In virtually every area, IMC has grossly underestimated the costs of successful reclamation. Their failure to plan and budget properly will be reflected in the failure of their restoration of the natural system."
Hi, I'm Kent Lilly. I'm an attorney in Polk County, Florida, and I'm very concerned that the true adverse impact of phosphate mining in this area has never been understood by the general public. You know, phosphate exists in great abundance all over the world, even in deserts. It does not have to be mined here in Florida at the cost of our precious natural resources. We need to take a look at this before it's too late. We've got to demand a regional environmental impact statement as required by law, studied by scientists who are objective and they are not beholden to the phosphate industry itself. I urge each of you to join us, make a contribution so that we can make sure that the government regulators are held accountable to the law of the land. We need to examine this situation before we allow something that's going to destroy our water, destroy our soil, and in fact destroy our very way of life. Please take a look at this website and find out how you can help. Let Florida live.